Hi guys, and welcome to my video. Today I'll be reviewing the film The Girl with the Needle. This is a dark and harrowing film about Caroline, who is living on the margins of society in absolute poverty. When she is impregnated by her boss at the factory, she is then shoved aside and is left to walk the streets. This is until Dagmar, a sweet shop owner, takes her in and offers her underground fostering services as she cannot get rid of the baby. Normally I would just go on and review the film, however I feel this film is best going in blind, so I'll give a very quick overview of the film, look how well it could do in the Oscar race, and also then have a spoiler section where I can go into more depth of the characters, narratives and themes of the film. This film played at Cannes and has won 2 prizes at the European Film Awards, including for Best Score and Best Production Design, and it has also been chosen as Denmark's official submission for Best International Feature Film Academy Award. So let's roll and review that film. The Girl with the Needle was directed by Magnus von Horn, a Swedish director who has delivered great films previously such as The Hereafter and Sweat. The film is based upon a true crime story of early 20th century in Denmark, and it has a really interesting way of telling history. It fully utilises its black and white aesthetic, which provides a sense of horror and suspense in terms of the narrative and the storytelling. And it gives this quality that you would often find in a Bela Tarr film. However, this is much more accessible. Although the story originates from Denmark, it was actually shot in Poland because the street scene is a lot more oldie worldy style elements, which provides that sense of this is quite historic. Whether it's accurate or not, it doesn't matter. It gives a great sense of history and the time period it's trying to portray. And in a way, it's a bit like the Polish film Cold War, where it's much more about being very true to the feeling of the historical period rather than the factual elements of the historical period. However, some of the themes are very contemporary, so it uses really effectively its score to interlink it with the past and the present. There's a use of classical music, which again provides that historical element, but there's also a use of ambient house, which feels a little bit like a trip hop pop video. And this is a really contrasting score, which delivers the time periods it's trying to portray, but also connecting to today. There's also a tour de force in terms of the acting. Vic Carmenson is remarkable as Caroline, delivering that sort of desperation and individuality that the character portrays within the story, and she rightfully was nominated for Best Actress at the European Film Awards. She really gives a sense of this sort of independence she wants to achieve, and she wants to better her life, despite the challenges she faces, even though they are quite horrific. Her co-star is the remarkable Trine Dyrholm, who is a national treasure of Danish cinema, and has been in films such as Festen. She plays Dagmar, who owns the sweet shop, and helps Caroline get rid of her baby. There is so much to say about these characters that I don't really want to get into because it's going to be a huge spoiler for those who haven't seen it.
Verden er et frygteligt sted. Men vi bliver nødt til at tro på, det ikke er sådan.
Hvorfor skulle du hjælpe mig?
Hvem skulle ellers gøre det?
Hvad gjorde du med dit barn?
I would give The Girl with the Needle 4.5 stars, and out of all the submissions for the Best International Feature Film Academy Award that I have seen so far, I would rank it as my favourite. So if it was up to me, I would choose this so far as the Oscar winner. At the time of recording, the shortlist has not been announced, but it should be done so in the next 24 hours. And I think it's got a great chance of making that final 15, almost a certainty. And whether it gets a nomination will depend on how well Oscar voters can deal with the challenging subjects of the film. And I think it's got a chance of making some of the technical categories because it's got remarkable cinematography that deserves to be awarded. In the history of the Best International Feature Film Academy Award category, Denmark is the 6th most successful country, with 4 Oscar wins, which includes for Babette's Feast, Pele the Conqueror, In a Better World, and Another Round. It's also had success with 10 nominations and 4 shortlisted films, which for a relatively small country is quite remarkable. But at the same time, it's a country that really invests in both TV and cinema, and it's paying off. And actually, a lot of the success has come within the 21st century. And if you look at the records in the last 10 years, Denmark are the second most successful country behind Germany, with their one win for another round, but 3 nominations and 3 shortlisted films, which shows they're on a trajectory of doing well in the Oscar category. And I really feel The Girl with the Needle will add to that success. So I'm now going to enter the spoiler section of this video review. And so if you've not seen the film, I would heavily advise to pause the video and come back when you have. The crux of the narrative is the fact that at the start of the film, you get the sense that Caroline is quite cold and there's something suspicious about her. But as the narrative progresses, you see this change as she goes through more and more dire circumstances. And this place of safety through Dagmar actually turns out to be very sinister, as her illegal fostering agency is actually an excuse for her to take unwanted babies and killing them, in part to deal with her own trauma of miscarriages. I think the huge success of The Girl with the Needle is in fact due to the way it combines the cinematography with a changing narrative. You get the sense at the start that Caroline is quite sinister, there is something dark and deeply disturbing about her, and she's very independent and rude and forthright, which probably adds to the situation. But as she becomes pregnant, you start seeing the situation she's actually in, and it's dire. And in fact, it's the character Dagmar that also changes throughout the film. When she's introduced, she's almost like that maternal older woman who has a sweet shop in a Hansel and Gretel style imagination-y thing, where she seeks to help young women who don't want children but have found themselves pregnant by fostering the babies to homes that really want them. But the reality is there's something much more sinister about her, where she takes these babies and kills them, in part as she hasn't processed the trauma of her own miscarriages. I think the film feels really timely. We've just had an American election where abortion was an issue, and there is the threat that abortion rights could start being restricted throughout the world. So it's very timely to remind ourselves what happens when abortion and birth control are restricted and illegal. And the situation this often puts women, in particular younger women, in is just extremely dire, and it allows for darker, more inhumane situations to happen. I think it's also interesting it touches upon the fact that not every woman has motherly instincts or wants to be a mother, and the lack of choice and birth control really impacts on these women, and it's really sympathetic towards them because of this lack of choice, that at the same time men can pick and choose whether they want to be involved or not. The women have to deal with the consequences. I think it's very brave that the national treasure of Danish cinema, that is Trine Dyrholm, takes up a role based upon one of the most notorious child killers in Danish history, and is probably a figure of hate within the society because of what she did. And I think it's a really great performance that deserved its European Film Awards Best Actress nomination, because she delivers this complex character that on the one hand is pure evil, but on the other hand is clearly mentally damaged by the situation within the country at the time, her own experiences of miscarriage, and the direness that is just existing at that point in time. I think the film could be seen as a little bit controversial because it doesn't paint Dagmar as a pure evil individual. It shows how complex the character is. Yes, she has agency, and yes, she makes decisions to kill these babies, which is pure evil. However, some of the contributing factors to make these decisions have been because society has treated her badly. She's had horrific traumatic experiences that are never properly dealt with. Her own loss of children, her own miscarriages, her own experience of trying to become a mother has really shaped her thought processes and caused her to cause so much harm and evil within Danish society. I think the film enters the debate around agency versus society really well. It looks at how, in cases of pure evil, how individuals make that choice and how also society can sometimes shape those choices. And it's not a black and white of good and bad, which is often portrayed in many films. I think you can have evil individuals, but that evil grows not in a vacuum. Instead, society has a contributing factor. And if we could look at how society is organised and address some of those key issues, and in this case it's about birth control, the treatment of women, the availability to foster, abortion, or whatever it might be, then it has the opportunity to prevent such evilness. It won't eradicate it because evil still exists. However, there is this contributing societal factor that needs to be addressed. I think The Girl with the Needle is a remarkable piece of cinema that is both dark and harrowing, portraying some of the real life situations caused by a mass child murderer. And it explores concepts such as good and evil, the role of individuals and agency versus societal pressures. And it's just a remarkably beautiful film. If you like this review and would like to follow the race for Best International Feature Film Academy Award, please do like this video, share it wide, put a comment in, what did you think of this film? But finally, do subscribe to Global Film Pool for more updates.